Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another training from JEE Europe. Today, the trainer is David Gomes, the last president of JEE Europe, and he will teach us a little bit about business strategy. So, David, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sara. Hello, everyone. Of course, this is a very different training because I will not be able to actually see you, but I know you are there. So welcome to this training, provided and brought to you by Joint Enterprises Europe. And I also wanted to thank Joint Enterprises Europe to bring this training to the network and to also invite me to bring here my knowledge to you guys and to try to pass the information to you. So as you know, and that's why you are all here today, we will be talking about business strategies. So talking a little bit about the roadmap on how to define a strategic roadmap for a company. Talking a little bit about business strategy and a little bit how the process is done, and giving you a lot of frameworks on how to define this strategic plan. Before we start talking about strategy, and even before I talk about my background, I just wanted to clear out some rules and to basically settle up a common floor for everyone, so your expectations are also managed. Okay, so the first thing that I want to tell you is that also to align your expectations for this specific training is that after this training you will not become a strategy expert. Okay, so instead you will learn a lot about the frameworks and the tools that are used for the strategic plan when you are defining a strategy for an organization. And of course, I mean, when you are defining a strategic plan for an organization, you need not only to know this type of tools and how to define this strategic plan, but you also need something very specific, which is the skill to have this strategic thinking skill. And of course, this is not something that I can teach you, or this is not something that I can actually transmit to you as knowledge. Instead, you should have the interest to develop this skill of having the ability to have this vision, this macro vision, and knowing how to analyze all of the aspects on a specific environment. There are multiple ways, if you search on the internet, to develop more this skill, like such as analyzing trends on a specific sector or a specific topic that you would like. Reading some books on a specific topic will help you develop the reasoning to have a little bit of developing the skill of the strategic thinking. That for sure is one of the skills that will be very important in the future, and in my opinion I think it's already a very important skill. Then, in my personal life, I've always believed that the practical examples are key when we are learning about something. Either it is the first time, or either it is something that we are gaining more knowledge about. I know that some of you come from the business background, some of you don't. So I will also try to adapt the knowledge that I will pass to you. But what I will also try to do throughout the training is that I will try to give as many practical examples as I can, so that you can understand exactly how it applies in the real world. Then, of course, I wanted to ask you to make questions, please, to these whenever you have questions. I know that, I mean, you have there the chat to to do the question. So whenever you have a question, you feel free to ask, to challenge, to ask me something that you would like to understand better, and I will be more than happy to answer to your questions. Also, to make this a little bit more interactive, just not a monologue, which is not supposed to be. And then last but not least, I want you to have fun as well. I will try to not be boring, I promise. But instead, I want you to have fun, to learn more about a specific topic, but also to have fun throughout this training. And I hope this hour and a half, more or less, will be enjoyable for you guys. Now, and before we start talking about strategy and everything, I wanted to give you a little bit of perspective on my background and why am I delivering this training. Well, as Sara already presented me, my name is David and I'm 23 years old. I have a bachelor's degree in management from ISCTE in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm from Portugal. And in my bachelor's degree, my degree was always very practical. Like we were always incentivized to actually put our hands into practice and to actually deal with real problems in the real world. So that gave me a lot of skills and a lot of ambition to actually learn more and to put my hands in practical stuff. That is also why I applied to be part of the joint enterprise in my university, Ish Consulting, where I stayed there 2 years and a half in the management and strategy department. So strategy was always something that I appreciated since the beginning of my degree. Then, after I finished my bachelor's, I decided to apply to Joint Enterprises Europe, where I got to be where I had the opportunity to be the president for the last term, and I was also head of strategy, so I was taking care of the strategy in Joint Enterprises Europe. Of course, doing strategy in Joint Enterprises Europe is very different from doing strategy in a business, in an organization, because of course my training will be more focused on the profit side, profit organization side. Of course, these type of frameworks and tools can also be used in NGOs and etc. But it has its adaptations, and today we'll focus on the profit side because we only have 1 hour and a half, so I cannot transmit you everything that I would like. Now, just giving you a little bit of an index of what we'll be talking about today, and for you to understand what is the structure of this training. First of all, I will give you a little bit of some initial thoughts about strategy and its history. So I would like to call it strategy fundamentals. This is basically just for you to, start thinking about strategy, start thinking about how it all came through and why are we talking about strategy today. Just for you to start, warming up your minds. Then I will talk to you about the strategic definition roadmap. So basically giving you an oversight of how we define a strategic plan. And after it, I will focus on each phase. That is why after it, we'll talk about the analysis. So analysis, diagnosis, as you prefer to call it. Then the formulation and planning. So let's say the part of the strategic definition, so the part of design where we can be the most creative we can. Then the last two phases, implementation and control. So giving you a little bit some insights and some ideas on how to implement and how to control the strategic plan, which is also very important, and we'll reach that part. And then some final thoughts, some summing up of this training, and maybe a challenge that I can give to you. So yeah. Let me just tell, I don't know if Sarah is listening to me, but I cannot see the YouTube video yet on my other screen. I'm just telling you this because I cannot see yet the questions that you might make. But still, guys, if you have any questions or any topics that you want to discuss, please feel free, and I'm sure Sarah will give me access to this chat as soon as possible. So let's start, talking about strategy and talking about what we are here today. And as you have seen in the index, now we'll start talking about the strategy fundamentals. So answering questions like, when did we actually start talking about strategy? Why do we actually need a strategic plan? And if we need, if I have a small company, do I actually need a strategy? And this is also something that has been very, very, very much discussed in the business world, and a lot of top management people have this type of discussions usually. And then what is a good or a bad strategy? So let's start with this strategy fundamentals, as I like to call it. First of all, in terms of let's say the date of birth of strategy was in 1917. Well, I mean, since the beginning, we have understood the importance of coordinating different functions inside an organization. Of course, they didn't use to call it strategy. They were just calling it, just the normal management of an organization. And of course, many, many years ago, companies and organizations were not the size that they are today, as we have examples of like big corporations. So since the beginning, we have known about this importance. Although in 1917, Fayol, who is a very important person for strategy and for business strategy, he started to work on this specific topic and starting to bring strategy as something important for the organizations. Also in Harvard University, they have started to have, let's say, a business unit called, a course unit, for the degree, called Business Politics, where they used to teach the top management of companies to actually coordinate this type of different functions inside a company. Then in the late 80s, we have Michael Porter, who is also very, very important and designed a lot of important models that I will actually talk in this specific training. He developed many models and many frameworks that are nowadays used to define a strategic plan for an organization. And so he started to work also a lot on this specific topic and creating a lot of these frameworks that are very important nowadays. And he also brought something very important to the business environment, which is called the strategic management. So not only the strategic planning, but also the strategic management, and how to actually do this when we are in a organization. Then, why do we actually need a strategy? I actually brought here a quote that I think it shows very much the importance of having a strategy, which says, rowing harder does not help if the boat is headed in the wrong direction. So basically, if we have an organization, if we have a business, and we don't know exactly where are we taking it, then there is no actual point in having this business, because if we don't have a clear goal and we don't have something that we are working towards, then what is the purpose? And this is very much connected with the part of big and small organizations, and if a small organization needs a strategic goal. Of course, this comes from my opinion and the opinion of many other people that study the topic. Strategy is always needed, even if we are talking about a small organization, because in the end of the day, even small organizations have a specific strategy, even if they don't call it that way, or even if they don't have a very nice document with the strategic plan. I can give you an example. For example, my father owns a shipping transportation company. I don't know how to call it in English, like a freight transportation, freight handling. Well, I hope you understood. So it's a small business, and once we were talking, and I was asking him, like, do you actually have a strategic goal? Like, do you have an objective for your business? And he said, no, I don't have I don't actually need it. But if we start digging down, the specific mindset behind this type of people that say, well, I don't need a strategy, in the end of the day, they have a strategy. Because, for example, for my father, having a business means that he wants to have his wage, he wants to have his payment at the end of the month, and of course, he wants to satisfy his clients, because he needs to, manage them in order to receive his income in the end of the month. So, believe it or not, this is a strategic goal. This is what is his goal for the business. That doesn't mean that he actually has a specific strategy, because of course he doesn't have a nice document, he doesn't have objectives for the business. Although all of these activities and all of these decisions are made towards this end goal, which is satisfying his clients so he can have a wage. So even though he doesn't have a strategic degree or a business degree, he still has a strategy, even though of course then it could be more improved, of course. And now going now to the last part, which is if we have a good or bad strategy. There is no good or bad strategy, and I think this is very important to define, because when a company is deciding where they want to go and what they want to do, it's completely up to them and to their decision what do they want to develop and what they want to be in the society. Now, what we have, it's a good or bad strategic planning. Why is this? Because even though if you can put a lot of efforts on defining a specific strategy and defining a specific goal, and you want to have this big organization and you want to make a lot of money, but then if your plan, if your implementation and control does not work, then you failed completely in implementing your strategic plan. That is why that specific parts of the strategic plan are also very important to make sure that we actually reach our end goal. So this was just some strategy fundamentals that I wanted to share with you, so you can start, warming up your minds. Now, as I said, let's look now to the roadmap on building a strategic plan, of course, in a structured and coherent way. Okay, of course, I mean, this has a specific order, and you should follow it. But then we will see that sometimes things are not as written in the books or said on classes. So, looking at the main roadmap, and just for you to understand, we start with something that is very, very important, that basically impacts all of the rest of the steps, which is the analysis part. So this analysis part is where we will basically collect all the data and understand what is our environment. Well, I think it's obvious why is this important, because you need to understand really where you are, where you're operating your business, so that you can actually take decisions for your strategic planning in the future. Of course, as I was saying, sometimes you can go back and forth, but we will talk about it more in the analysis part. Then, after we analyze, after we collect the data, after we have everything collected, then we go for the formulation and planning. And as I said, this is the most creative part. This is where we can get creative and just try to understand what we want to do with our business. Of course, this will depend a lot on what you want to do and what type of sector you are working. And in this part, I will also give you some frameworks on how to formulate this strategic plan and how to actually structure it in a coherent way. Then we have the implementation part. So this is the practical part. This is where we will put everything into practice. We will put everything basically deciding the rules, deciding the clear objectives. When do we want to reach them? So this is the part where we will have to put our hands on the job. Then the control part, and this is the last part, and it stays until the end of the strategic planning, because of course it should have a time frame. And of course, the control should be continuous, and we should keep continuing analyzing our strategic plan to understand if everything is going well, and if not, try to have some basically contingency plans so we can adapt our strategic planning, because it's supposed to be updated and not completely outdated. So now that we have seen the roadmap and the main roadmap on how to define a specific strategy, we will go for the specific parts of this roadmap. So starting by the analysis. As I told you, like now I will give you some frameworks and models that will support you on this first phase that, as I told you, it's very important for you when you are defining a strategic plan. So going for the analysis, and as we are seeing these very nice circles, there are many things that you should evaluate in your environments that are very important for you to understand where are you working, operating your businesses. So as I told you, basically the analysis is very important because you will collect all the data that you need. And this data will be used so that you can take decisions in the design part, so where you will be formulating the strategy itself. Of course, not only this data will be useful for this, but also for you to understand your environment and for you to be able to look at it and understand how it works, so you can actually adapt to this environment. As I told you as well, there is no problem going back and forth with the analysis, because of course it's completely normal that we sometimes need to go back to the analysis and collect some more data. Giving you some practical examples. Imagine that you have a restaurant, and now in the, let's say in the formulation and planning part, you have decided that you want to be more digital. So you want to implement, for example, digital menus, and you want to have digital orders and etc. And maybe when you were doing the analysis, you didn't put much effort on searching about how digital is being implemented in restaurants and etc. So there is no problem. You should go back to the analysis part and collect some more data in order for you to understand better this specific part. Another example that I can actually give you as well is that imagine that you were on the formulation and planning part, and suddenly coronavirus appears and you completely change your life, and not only your life but the life of everyone around the world. So of course, nowadays, if you are on this phase when you are doing a strategic plan, then for sure you need to go back to the analysis and basically redo it again, because I think we know, a lot of things change and a lot of things impacted the way that we are working. So now it's very important to adapt to this new situation. And even though we don't know exactly how it will impact our daily lives in the future, it's very important that we collect enough data to understand at least what we can do for now. Let me just tell again, Sarah, that I don't have the access yet to the questions, if people are making questions, because I cannot see the chat live. Let me just here, guys, take a minute just to check if I can see. Yeah, perfect. Now I have access. Sorry, guys. Just wanted to make sure that I actually have the access to the questions. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I can see now. Perfect. Now I can see. Well, hello everyone. Now I'm only seeing now the what you put, guys, there in the chat. So of course, hello everyone. And let's continue. So in case you have questions now, I can see them. Unfortunately. So yeah, as I was saying, this part is very important, and sometimes we need to go back and forth for the analysis part. Now, going back to these circles, there are three main levels that you should analyze when you are doing a strategic plan. So first of all, the external environment, so considering your geographical place, where you are operating your business. some general thoughts and some general ideas on what is the external environment that you are working on. That will also impact your business, and we will talk about it next. Then, of course, we should be more focused on the sector and where you are operating your business. So let's call it the competitive environment. So where we will be basically analyzing all of our competitors, all of our sector, and how it will impact also our business when we are taking our decisions. Then last but not least, the internal environment. So we also need to understand ourselves, so how our organization and our strengths and weaknesses, so we can also understand how we will work from now on. Sometimes we need to change some things on the internal side, sometimes we don't. So it's something that is very adaptable and very depending on the business that you have. Now I will go for each level of this analysis part and how to actually proceed with it. Starting with the external environment, so again, the bigger circle that we have to analyze basically what are the general factors that will really impact our business. There is a very known framework that maybe most of you know, which is the pestle analysis. It's the most common framework used on this specific analysis, because we want to understand our macro environment, sometimes specifically in our country, and maybe sometimes even in more than one country if you are operating your business in different countries. And of course, each of these elements, these 6 elements that compose the pestle, need to be analyzed in a way that will also be interesting for you. And why do I say this? Because especially in my business degree, a lot of my colleagues used to do this mistake, which is sometimes you take information to the pestle analysis that it's not worth it or does not influence your business. Such as, for example, let's say that in the analysis I take that António Costa is the Prime Minister of Portugal. That does not give me anything in terms of information, because okay, I know that António Costa is a prime minister, perfect, but it doesn't mean that will impact specifically my business. If we talk about other countries that maybe have a different environment in terms of the prime minister or anything, then that type of things are important to put on this pestle analysis, okay? So you need to really be careful on the type of data that you put into the analysis, because otherwise we're also only wasting time on this type of analysis that then won't give us anything in terms of concrete inputs. Going one by one on the specific pestle analysis that we can do, we start with the political side. So we try to understand a little bit how the national or regional governments influence our sector. So for example, first of all, if our government is stable, and of course if it's stable, it gives us some comfort when we are developing our business, because if we are in a country where the government is not very stable and we have a lot of political problems, that might impact a lot our business, because then we have a different way of behaving and a lot of maybe legislation changing from time to time. So these type of things can impact our business. And also something that is very important to analyze in the political part is the international relations of the country. Because, for example, I will give again the example of Portugal, but if I want to operate my business in Portugal, but I also want to export, for example, to China or even to Brazil, I know that Portugal has very good relations with them. So in the first point and in the first step, we know that it's very easy to reach these type of countries where our countries already have a good political relationship. Because otherwise, if we're talking about other countries where they are not very connected politically, then it's very hard sometimes to make sure that our business reaches their population. Then the next specific part of the pestle analysis, it's the economical part. And I think here it's very obvious for everyone what we need to analyze. All of the things that might impact our business. For example, if we are talking about a business that is mainly focused on, for example, younger people, then of course it's very important to understand what is their power of purchase, how is the economical perspective on the country, how is also the education levels in the specific countries. All of the things that might impact your business specifically, that of course might be relevant for you to understand on the economical side. Then we go for the social part, and here we go for the demographic characteristics that might influence, of course, our sales prediction. As I was saying, if we are focusing our business on selling to the younger people, then we need to understand how many people we have in the country that have this specific age from our targets, so we can actually define some sales prediction. Otherwise, it's very hard to basically base our decisions on data, right? Then we have the technological part. So sometimes this is important, sometimes it is not. Depends a lot on the business sector that you are operating in. But basically, it's important for you to understand the level of innovation in the country. If there are any incentives to new technology in a country, it's also very important to understand. So this will depend a lot also on the business that you are operating, because maybe sometimes you don't actually have anything to do here. Then we have the environmental part, so not only the weather and climate part, because of course sometimes it impacts a lot our business, sometimes it doesn't. So for example, if we are working on something that is related with agriculture or anything, of course the weather is very important. And if we have a business that impacts either positively or negatively the climate, then it's also very important to understand what are our policies and what we can do in our business sector. Taking again the example of transportation companies, the freight transportation, I still don't know how to call it. If we're talking about this type of companies, of course, there are usually a lot of concerns in terms of the waste of petroleum, the gas that are consumed by the cars. So this is something that impacts the business directly, right? Last but not least, again, the legal part. So sometimes this is mixed with the political part, and it's fine. It's completely up to you to change the framework if you prefer. It's not a problem. But here we need to understand really what is the legal framework where we are operating our business, because sometimes there are legislations that can influence the way we operate our business in the sector. So we need to really understand what are our limits, what we can do, and also then all the tax and financial stuff that is very important for you to analyze. So this is the pestle analysis, and as I told you, it's important to understand the external environment of your organization. You don't need to follow this order. You don't need to actually use all of them, because as I told you, sometimes it's not important. What is important for you to understand is this is just a framework to help you think and to help you understand how to analyze this environment. Then you might have other things that might influence your business, and maybe it's important for you to analyze. What I challenge you to do is also to find other analysis that help you doing this external environment, that maybe sometimes will help you more than this pestle analysis that is the most common used. Now that we talked about the external environment, now we will talk about the competitive environment and how we want to analyze it. And here I bring you another model, and you remember when I told you about Michael Porter. Sorry, I think I have a question. When you do a pestle analysis with a team, could you split it up? Or is it important that everyone does every step from 1 to 6? Answering to this question from Moritz, I don't know exactly your name. Well, this depends a lot on, of course, how you manage your teams. But for example, it's very common that, for example, in consultancy companies, you divide sometimes the parts of the pestle analysis. And it's completely fine, because this is just a matter of collecting the data. As soon as you have all the data collected, then it's just a matter of everyone consulting the information. Of course, not everyone needs to work on all of the 6, but of course, if all of you, let's say if a team is working on the design part of the formulation of the strategy, then they need to read everything that was collected on the pestle analysis. So it's not a matter of collecting all the information, it's a matter of reading all the information. That's a different perspective, okay? And thank you for the question. As I was saying, I was moving on to the competitive environment and how we want to evaluate our competitors and how it impacts our business. Remember when I told you about Michael Porter, that was very important in designing some models to understand strategy. He designed a very, very nice framework that is called the 5 Forces of Porter. These 5 forces are basically five things that we need to analyze in our sector that will basically give us the attractiveness of our business sector. And here we have 2 perspectives. Either we have a new business and we are entering a new market, and of course, if the market is attractive to us, then it's perfect. Or sometimes we are analyzing it in the perspective where you when you are already inside the business and in the sector, so you are analyzing if it's attractive for other competitors to enter this specific market. It's just a matter of how you actually perceive this specific framework. The first thing, and it's not the first, like this doesn't have an order as the pestle, but I will tell you, like, the first thing that I usually analyze is the threat of new entrants. So basically, this is the threat of new competitors entering in our market. How they, if it's easier for them to actually enter in our market. So usually here we analyze things such as, like, for example, installment costs. If it's cheap or very expensive for us to enter a specific market. What is the strength of the current players? If they are already very strong, then of course it's very hard for new competitors to appear. And then also, for example, for big companies, sometimes it's very hard to have scale economies on a very early stage of the company. So this also impacts the threat of new entrants. Giving a practical example, let's talk about the flights companies. Of course, if you want to operate on this business sector, it's very hard for you to enter this market because not only you have very high installment costs because you need to buy airplanes, you need to have access to the airports and etc. But also it's very hard for you to actually reach scale economies because you need to fill your airplanes, and if you are a new business, then you need to build some trust with your clients. So as we can understand, the threat of new entrants in the flight sector, it's very low because it's very hard to enter this specific market. Then another force from Porter is the bargaining power of suppliers. So how the suppliers can impact our prices and can influence the prices that they are making us. So factors such as, like, the differentiation of the suppliers, the production costs might influence this bargaining power. For example, I will give again the example of transportation companies because this is very good for this specific part. Because if I am a small business and I have a transportation company that does some, transportation for some of my products, then their bargaining power is very low because I have many other transportation companies that I can go for to, transport my product from A to B. But if we are talking about a big company that subcontracted the whole, chain to a specific transportation company, then they start to have more bargaining power because, of course, it's very hard for a company to change the transportation company when everything is pretty much settled. So here they gain more bargaining power with us as a business. Then on the other side, we have the bargaining power of our buyers. So how they can actually influence our prices when we are, dealing with business. Giving another example, the clothes shops, for example. When you go to a Primark or anything, you don't actually go to the cashier and you try to negotiate the price. Like, the price is the one that is on the ticket and you just pay for it if you want. So there is no actually bargaining power here for the buyers in the Primark business and of course the clothes businesses. On the other hand, you have other businesses that sometimes the buyers have actually a lot of power. Again, going back to the transportation, if I am a business that wants to transport something from A to B, then I have some bargaining power with the transportation company as a buyer, because I can go to that specific transportation company or I can just go for another one that will do the exact same job, but just with a different logo and a different truck. Then we have the threat of substitute products. For those who might not know exactly what is a substitute product, substitute products are products that satisfy the same need, but in the core they are different. The common example that we have is the butter and the margarine. So they are different products, but they serve the same need. So this is also important to analyze because sometimes this is also a big threat for our business or not. Depends a lot. And it's important for you to understand that this is not about rivalry and not about competitors. It's about substitute products, okay? Because sometimes the substitute products are maybe not operating in our sector, but they can satisfy the same need, okay? And then last but not least, and as I was saying, it's also important to understand, is the I'm so sorry, I cannot say this word, rivalry, okay? Among existing competitors, where you need to analyze how it is, how the competitors are working in the specific sector, if they have strong marketing, campaigns, if they have a strong engagement with the clients, if the clients are really connected to the brands or not. So this is also very important to analyze in the specific market. Of course, when we talk about, for example, the retail companies, so the general retail like food retail and etc., of course there is a lot of competition because they put a lot of efforts on marketing. They try as much as they can to do a lot of promotions so they can have as many clients as possible. So here we can see that the rivalry, it's very important, rivalry. And now trying to apply this on a very specific frame, I usually do a table with the five forces when I'm analyzing a specific sector. Some people sometimes use a scale to evaluate these specific forces and then having a final result as a number. To be honest, you can do it as you prefer. In my personal opinion and how I used to do it is that I give basically some tickets in terms of if it's low or high. So for example, if the threat of new entrants it's either high, moderate or low, etc., etc., so that in the final I can understand if the sector is attractive or not. Let's take an example of a sector 1. We don't need to actually understand what is a sector. Let's just take it as an example. A sector where the threat of new entrants is very low, but on the other side, the bargaining power of suppliers is very strong, so they influence a lot the prices that they make to us. The bargaining power of buyers is also very strong, so they also influence a lot the prices that we make to them. The threat of substitute products is also very strong, so people are very easy to, just go for the other product instead of going for my product. And then the rivalry among existing competitors is also very strong. So for a new business to actually enter this specific sector, then this sector is not very attractive to this specific company because, as we might have seen, these are all very bad influencers of our business activity and how we operate in this specific sector. So as we can see, this sector is not very attractive. On the other side, if we have a business sector where the threat of new entrants is very high, and on the other side we have the bargaining power of suppliers very low, the bargaining power of buyers very low or even zero, the threat of substitute products is very low, and then the rivalry among existing competitors is moderate. And here I put moderate because I don't actually remember a business sector where the rivalry among existing competitors is low. If you remember about any sector that might be like this, please put it on the comments so we can discuss. But on my perspective, I don't see a specific sector where this rivalry it's not at least moderate, because it's perfectly normal that the competitors fight with each other, And of course, now on this specific sector, we have high attractiveness for a new business that is entering this specific sector, because of course, if the threat of new entrants is very high, means that it's very easy to enter this specific sector, and then all of the other things impact positively our business, then it's very, very nice for us and it attracts us to be working on this specific sector. Of course, if we are already inside the business and if we are already operating in this specific business, then you need to analyze in a different perspective, because of course, if you are not if you are operating in the business already and the threat of new entrants it's very strong as well, then you need to have a different valuation of what will be the final outcome of these forces. There are people that are starting to add some forces to the Porter analysis. I also challenge you to see them on the internet, because some of them are specified for a specific business sector, and it's completely fine for you to put new forces here, because this is supposed to help you understand if this market where you are operating is attractive or not for you. Okay, then of course I'm not talking about this on the competitive environment, but of course it's also very important for you to understand your competitors. So all the benchmark analysis that you can do, it's completely fair, and you should put it here on the competitive environment. There are no actually any frameworks for the benchmark analysis, because that depends a lot on the business sector. But of course you should try to understand how your competitors are doing in the market, what type of products are they offering, what type of relationship they are building with with their clients. So all of these things in terms of benchmark are very important. Now, going for the internal environment, so the last circle that we had, again, I will call Michael Porter for this to help us on this specific part, because he built this, I like to call it graphic, to analyze our value chain. So basically, what he basically did is that he tried to put a company, a business, in specific boxes where we can analyze each other and try to understand what we can take out of it. Of course, as you are seeing in this specific graphic, all of these activities from a company should give as final result margin for the company. I mean, the end goal of a specific business is also to generate margin for their stakeholders, right? So this is also very, very important. This value chain basically divides the activities of a business in two specific parts. So the primary activities, so the activities are directly related with the production of the main product or services that you are delivering to the final client, and then the support activities, so all of the activities that the businesses have to support again the main activity. Okay, going one by one, and I will not take much time on this, just I think it's pretty much clear how this works. But for example, the inbound logistics, it's everything that is related with receiving and storing all of our resources that we will transformate to have our final product. Then we have the operations, so this is the transformation part where we are transforming the resources into something that we want to deliver to our final client. And then we have the outbound logistics, that is basically the how the product, the delivery of the product to the specific client. How you deliver your product, if it is in a box or anything. All of this goes to the outbound logistics. Then marketing and sales, so how you actually sell to your client, what is the type of relationship that you have with them, how you invest in the campaigns, etc., etc., etc. And then the services, so service is basically all of the things that you do after the client buys your product or service. So the after purchase services that you might have or not. This is something also that is possible in some businesses. Then when we go for the support activities, we have things like the firm infrastructure. So here we analyze all of the infrastructures that support our business, either they are IT related or not. Of course, nowadays there are a lot of IT tools that support us in our infrastructure as a business. So we need to have computers, we need to have a physical space. We need physical space because coronavirus, and I think it will impact a lot this part of having an office. But all of the companies need an infrastructure to operate in. And then not only they need this infrastructure, but also they need the HR management. So they need people to operate in the business. So of course, this HR management and how the organization is organized, so how the top leadership is organized, it's also very important for to understand. Then the technology development. So of course, as I told you a lot of times, there are some companies that work a lot on this with technology, some of them don't. So this also depends a lot on the business sector that you are operating. And then the procurement. Procurement is basically the relationship that you have with your suppliers, the ones that supply your activities for you to deliver the product or service to your final client. So as I told you, Michael Porter tried to divide a company in specific boxes so that you can grab each one of them and understand how it is internally, okay? Of course, I will not tell you okay, now you will go for your business and you try to understand how do you receive your materials into your storage or anything. This depends a lot again on the business sector that you are operating in, and also on how you do your analysis. Because as I told you, I'm giving you all the tools and all the frameworks for you to be able to do this type of analysis, but then all of the practical stuff of of this analysis need to be made by you and by your understanding of the business. And that's something that I cannot teach, and that's something that I cannot transmit to you as a trainer on this specific topic. What I can give you is the tools for you to actually use them and try to understand what you can take out of them. Because as I told you in the beginning, in the internal environment, you want to understand what you are as a business. So here it's important for you to understand how things work so that you can either take a decision whether you need to change anything on the planning part and formulation, or if you will keep things as they are and if they are relevant for you like this, okay? So this is something that it's very important. Then the Porter value of chain also gives us the opportunity to do something, which is trying to find our competitive advantage. what is our competitive advantage? Basically, all the businesses should have or should try to have a competitive advantage. Competitive advantage, it's basically what distinguishes us from our competitors. So what are we doing different from our competitors so that people actually buy our product instead of buying the product of other people. So in this value of chain, you need to understand where do you have your competitive advantages. Of course, they can be more than one and they should be more than one. Or sometimes you have a big competitive advantage compared to others that sometimes are just maybe smaller and have a smaller impact on the business model. But here it's important for you to understand what is your actually competitive advantage. Is it on the marketing and sales that you do with your company? And we have a lot of main examples that companies that have competitive advantage on this. For example, companies that have their reputation very well positioned in the market, such as Coca-Cola. I mean, one of their competitive advantages is the weight of the brand that they have built throughout the years. So of course, that is a competitive advantage and it's related with marketing and sales. Sometimes you have a competitive advantage in HR management because you try to have the best of the best people working with you on this specific sector, all the experts and etc. So this also works as a competitive advantage. Now, what I want to pass to you is that how can you actually know that you actually have a competitive advantage? And before you ask me how to do it, I will give you another framework on how to understand if you have actually a competitive advantage or not, which is the VRIU framework. This framework is basically a test that you run to your competitive advantage to understand if it's actually a sustainable competitive advantage. Okay, so now these questions are in order of the ones that you should make. So for example, we have the VRIU, we should start by the value, then for the rare, then for the inimitable, and then for the organized. So this has a specific order, and then I will explain you why. But explain you a little bit how specifically about specific questions. First, we ask ourselves if this competitive advantage is valuable. Okay, so is it actually valuable for our organization? Does it bring actually value to how we will deliver our product or service to the client? Because if it's not, then maybe it's not a competitive advantage. Sometimes it cannot influence directly the product or services that we are delivering to the final client, but sometimes brings us net value in terms of the efficiency of the processes. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes we have a very efficient way to deal with all of our things that we have in our storage. So of course that can also be a competitive advantage, and if that brings us some net value, some monetary value on the way that we are doing things, because maybe we don't need 5 workers, maybe we need 2, because we have machines working and dealing with all of our resources. Then we go for the rare part. So is our competitive advantage rare? So is it hard to find or acquire, and do other companies already have it or not? This is very important for you to understand if it's something that you already have and if other competitors have as well, because you need to not only need to understand the others' businesses, but you also need to understand yours and if you are doing something that is different and rare inside the business sector. Then after this question we have the inimitable. So can other companies try to imitate, or is it easy to actually replicate this specific competitive advantage? Because let's be honest, of course competitors will try to take out from you the competitive advantage that you have, because of course clients will choose you instead of the other company because of this competitive advantage. So competitors will always try to get out from you the competitive advantage. What is important for you to understand is if it's easy for them or not to actually replicate this specific competitive advantage. Then the last question is organized. This is the English translation that I searched on the internet. People use it as organized. I don't like this translation, but still it's the one used generally, so I will teach you like this. But this last question is basically if our organization is prepared to explore the best out of this resource. Because sometimes we have a competitive advantage, but the company is not actually ready to exploit the best out of this specific competitive advantage, and in this way it fails the test. As you might have understand already, I really like tables and etc. So I think it's more visual for you to understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this specific test. Let's try to take out the different results that we can take from this test for you to understand what are the final results, because As I told you, you should do them in order. So we start with valuable, then rare, then inimitable, then organized, and then you have a final result. Let's take the first example. If something we believe it's a competitive advantage does not actually bring value to us as a company and a business and does not impact what we are delivering to the final clients, then it's not a competitive advantage. Instead, it's a competitive disadvantage because it's not bringing value to us as a business, as an organization. So it already fails the test since the beginning. Another example is that, okay, we have a competitive advantage that actually, okay, it's valuable and it brings us value as a company, but then it's not rare. So a lot of other competitors already have this competitive advantage. Then we are in a context of competitive parity. So we don't have a competitive advantage. Instead, we are in the same level of our competitors because this is something that is not rare. It brings value to the businesses, yes, but still, it's not something that it's something that other competitors are also doing in their specific businesses. Then another example, we have something that is valuable, perfect. Then it's something that is also rare, that is great, but it's not inimitable. So in this case, it's very easy to replicate in the other businesses. In this case, we might have a competitive advantage, but it's temporary because it's just a matter of time until our competitors realize our competitive advantage and try to take it out from us and implement in their businesses as well. That is why it's temporary. It's a temporary competitive advantage. Then, other example is that, okay, we have something, let's say a resource or a capacity that is valuable, great, something that is rare, that is great as well. It's very inimitable, so it's very hard for others to actually, implement it in their business. But then our organization is not ready yet to exploit the best out of this competitive advantage. In this case, we are with an unused competitive advantage because the only thing that is missing here is that we need to have the structure and the power to actually use this specific competitive advantage. Last, and of course, let's imagine that we have something that influences and something that passes the test with yeses. So something that is valuable, something that is rare, something that is very hard to replicate, and then our company is actually organized to exploit the best out of this competitive advantage. Then in this way, we have a sustainable competitive advantage because it's not only something that makes us different from our competitors, but still it's sustainable because not only it's very hard to replicate, but also our organization is ready to actually take out the best from it, and we can operate in our business. As I told you, you can run this test as many times as you want. You can only to run this test on a computer, or you don't need any IT. As you have seen, you don't need any IT related stuff to do this test. This is something that you do on a paper, and with this you understand what are your competitive advantages inside a business sector. Okay. Going back to the last part of the analysis, of course, we have the SWOT analysis. I'm sure all of you know more or less what is the SWOT analysis, and it's very used in very different environments. What I want you to take out from this SWOT analysis, and I think it's important for me to tell you, is that the SWOT has two different parts, okay? It has the strengths and weaknesses part, where we will analyze our strengths as an organization and our weaknesses as an organization. And on the other side, we will analyze the opportunities and threats. Opportunities inside our environment and the threats inside our environment. So consider the SWOT analysis as a sum up, the main sum up of our diagnosis part. So from the internal environment that we have just analyzed, we take out our strengths and weaknesses, and that's where we come back to the value chain. We try to understand what we have as strengths and as weaknesses. And then on the opportunities and threat sides, we try to understand what are the opportunities from the external environment, from what we have analyzed, from all the data that we have collected, and then what are the threats? So what are the things that might influence negatively our business sector? So with this, we can sum up what all of the information that we have collected in this specific part. Of course, then it's up to you to understand how you manage the data. Sometimes you can have different SWOTs for different parts of the business, depending on the size of your business and etc. But still, I find it very important and very relevant for you to use this tool to understand how all of the data that you have collected will impact the next step. I think I have here a question. How can we know our organization is ready to exploit a competitive advantage? This on the previous part, and I will just answer this question. This depends a lot, again, on the business sector, but I will try to be as much, let's say, as much practical as I can. Let's imagine a business that for now it's a small business and does not have, for example, an HR management team. But still you manage to have a lot of important people in your company, like experts from the area, people that really know about. Trying to give the practical example, let's call it a bakery shop, like a bakery. You have the best baker in town, you have the best person to do your cakes for your people and for your clients, but still you don't have an HR team, or at least you don't have an HR responsible, let's call it this way, because I'm not saying that a bakery should have an HR management team, but still you don't manage to actually manage this person as a person, as a human being. Then you will lack on the motivation of this specific baker, on the specific person that is working with you, because of course maybe he will contribute to your business in a specific time frame, but then if he's not motivated, if he's not being valued inside the organization, then you are not actually using the best that you can from him as let's say a competitive advantage that you have for your bakery. You understand? This is a very specific example, but I think it clears out the importance of it. So you have something that is valuable, you have something that is completely competitive advantage, but you are not using it as much as you could because maybe you are not working on the motivation of the person, and maybe you will just lose it either way or another. Okay, I hope I answered your question, Giovanni. But basically this is it. You don't have the infrastructure to explore this specific competitive advantage that you have. So now we finished the analysis part. Okay, I know this was a lot of information. This was a lot of things to transmit. But now we go for another important part. So now that we have collected all the data, now that we have collected all of the things that that we needed to understand our environment and also our internal environment as an organization, now we go for the design part. So where we can be creative and where we can design everything for our business. This is the part where you should be the most ambitious, because you need to understand where do we want to take your business on a strategic level. So in 5-10 years, where do we want to actually see your business? As I started by saying, strategy began with a concept in terms of managing the different sectors or different activities inside a company. But strategy is much more about trying to reach a specific goal and trying to reach a specific, something very specific. Thank you, J Enterprises Europe. So you want to achieve something very specific, and this is where the strategic plan should start. So there are three main concepts that a business should start defining that will basically dig down until the main objectives that we have. Again, this is not something that I can transmit to you as knowledge, because as I told you, like the strategic thinking, it's a skill that is sometimes very hard to develop, but it's something that you should work on in different times of your career and your activities that you do in your businesses. So in this specific part, you need to understand where do you want to take your business as a macro business that you want to have in the future. So you need to understand where do you want to be in 5 years and how you want to be dealing with all of your stakeholders from the business. Okay. With this strategic plan should start with three main concepts that should be defined by your organization to act and to try to achieve them. Okay. I am sure all of you have seen already these type of things defined and sometimes cleared out in the websites from the companies, which is the vision, mission, and values. Okay. As I told you, your strategic plan should start with your main goal, your long-term goal for your organization. Where do you want to be in the future, and which level do you want to be? Usually this vision, and of course it's very connected with the fact that it should be represented by everyone inside the organization, is that the vision it's usually something very broad and something very inspiring. Not because you want to sell it, not because you want to be very nice with them, but it's something that should inspire not only the people that work with you, but should also inspire you as a business leader, as a top management from the company. It's something that you want to be as the organization and what you want to do in the future and what you want to reach. And from this point, then you start defining exactly what you will do to achieve this specific vision. Consider it like the main goal from your organization. Remember when I told you about my father's company, which is his main goal, his main vision is to basically have money to support his family. And it's a completely fair vision for someone that has a business. Of course, then businesses have other types of objectives to reach that goal. And then, of course, we'll impact all of this to make sure that we are working towards our vision. I can give you a specific example of a vision. Now from an NGO, from Make-A-Wish. I'm sure everyone knows. Make-A-Wish, it's an NGO that works with basically, I don't know how to say it, but basically, basically giving the wishes to the child that have terminal diseases, like fulfilling their main dreams, fulfilling their main dreams to these childs that have terminal diseases. And their vision, and I found it very, very inspiring as well, it's to grant a wish of every eligible child. So this is their vision. They want to grant a wish to every child eligible. So this is not only a very important role that they have, so of course it's very inspiring for all the people that work with Make-A-Wish, but it's also something that they are working towards. So they want to reach as many children as they can, so that they can provide a better life for them. So this is the type of vision that we also want for our business. So something that is not only inspiring, but something that we want to go for and we want to fight for. Then on the other side, we have the mission. And the mission is basically what we do as an organization for our society. What is our daily activities and what are we doing on a daily life to achieve our vision? For example, I want to give the mission of IKEA for you to understand, and it's very long, so I will read it. To be offering a wide range of well-designed, functional home furnishing products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. This is basically the mission of IKEA. This is something what they do on a daily life. So they try to give cheap but still functional and well-designed products to people. And why is this? Because their vision is basically to make a better everyday life for everyone, which is completely fair, right? It's their business. It's basically giving furniture at a fair price. So this is their mission, their main mission in the society, what they are doing as an organization. Then the third thing that we should define, and I think we have noticed its importance increasing in the last few years, which is the values of a company. So the values that define the DNA of an organization as a whole. For example, what we have seen, especially during this pandemic situation, is that companies that manage to have a very strong relationship and very emotional relationship with their clients are the ones that manage to still keep that clients even after the pandemic. Because during this lockdown, we have seen that companies try to have this sharing this message of hope, messages of strengthening this relationship with their clients are the ones that manage to succeed. And in many years, we have seen that brands are improving a lot on this part of having a more human perspective when they are operating their business. What we have seen as well is that brands that are not authentic, brands that really don't stand out for something as an organization and with values, they don't succeed in the businesses that where they are operating. For example, I'm not saying that, for example, a small business should have values. I'm saying that it's important for the organization to have values because not only the brand that we are building, it's important that should transmit some values to our customers, but also should have some values for our internal organization, so we have everyone aligned and we have everyone working towards the same goal. Because if we have people inside our company that have different values, then something might be wrong when we are actually implementing our specific strategic plan. Then, of course, this part of the formulation, it's very confusing, and sometimes it will be very confusing for you if you are after this training. If you will define a strategic plan, it will be very hard for you to understand how you can go from the macro part, well, the vision, mission, and values, to the specific objectives and to the specific strategies. This is something that again comes from your perception and from your understanding of the business, because you need to define what you want to do as an organization to achieve that specific vision. And from that point on, you start defining the micro steps from the specific things. You start talking about each part of the organization, how it will impact your main activity and your main vision, and how it will impact all of the rest that you are doing and developing as a company. I think I have here another question. How would you say, in your own words, what is the difference between vision and mission? Going back to the vision, mission, and value. As I said, the vision is the main goal that you want to achieve. So in 5, 10 years, 20 years, I want to be like this. For example, for Make-A-Wish, remember to grant a wish for every eligible child. So what do you want to achieve, and why do you have your business operating every day? Because we want to achieve this specific vision. The mission is what we are doing today. So what are we doing as a business, and what is our impact in society? As I told you for IKEA, it's basically delivering fun, well-designed, practical, functional furnishing for everyone at a low price so that everyone can afford. So it's something that we are doing today as a business. So what is our main business that we are operating so that we can achieve our main vision, which is our goal for the next specific years. Hope I answered your question. I will not say the name because it's not very nice to say the name, but I hope I answered your question. As I was saying, now we go for the specific part of going now for the micro part of the formulation and planning of the specific strategy. And as I told you, this will depend a lot on how you actually perceive the business and perceive the strategic plan that you are doing. Again, I will give you some more frameworks that will help you on defining your specific strategy that then, of course, will have to be dig down until the main objectives. Now I will bring in another person, which is Ansov. Mr. Ansov brought very nice metrics that basically help us choosing our commercial orientation. As I told you, I'm talking about business strategy, so I will focus on organizations that in the end of the day want to make profit for their stakeholders. So this specific framework helps us understanding our commercial orientation and how we want to operate in the specific market. So, for example, if we are talking about a specific product, so a product that already exists in an existing market, so working on a market that we already exists, we are doing a market penetration. I'm sorry because I'm seeing the questions as well. I'm doing a market penetration. So basically, I'm entering the market with the existing market with already existing products. On the other hand, if I'm having a new product to an existing market, what I'm doing is basically product development. So I'm developing a product for an existing market. Now, if we go for an existing product that has entering a new market, then what we are doing is a market development, because we are searching for new markets for our existing product. And then diversification, which is basically we have a new product for a new market. And I will give you examples for each one of you. I just wanted to go to all of them. Starting with market penetration. What we are doing basically, it's either an increase of use, because we are increasing the use of a client of a specific product, or we are increasing the market share. So we are just another competitor that is dividing the market share inside a specific sector. Specific example, telecommunications companies. If me as David enter the business sector with a new company, what I will do is that I have an existing product that is entering an existing market, and in this way I'm doing a market penetration. And of course I will try to differentiate from the others in some way, either in cost or in other way. On the other side, if we talk about, for example, new products for existing market, as I told you, we are doing product development. So here what we are doing is that either we are increasing the range of products that we are offering to the existing market, or we are creating new products that people will use or people are already using, but in a different way. For example, the electric cars. The electric cars were new products that were introduced to the existing market, the transportation market. So we have introduced this new product to the existing market in order to create this new product that is now being used by many people as we see. Then going for the market development, we have seen product development, now the market development. So basically what we are doing is that we are trying to create new markets with an existing product. Here we have two perspectives. Either we are serving new segments of clients or we are converting our non-clients. Let's take the example, for example, of the moisturizer creams. We have seen that some brands now communicate their moisturizer as like the normal moisturizer, and then we have specific men moisturizer. And even though sometimes it has a different smell and of course a different package, it's the same product. We have the same exact moisturizer, but for a new segment of clients. So this type now target for men. So this is an example of market development. We try to have a bigger market. We try to go for new markets in terms of serving new segments. Here we usually also have, let's say, in terms of demographics, like for example, sometimes we are serving new clients from other countries, and that's why when we are doing market development for other countries and we are taking our business to another country. Now, finally, we have a new product that is entering a new market, and in this case, we are doing a diversification. And here we have two perspectives. The diversification can be either related or non-related, because sometimes you have a new product for a new market that is related with your main activity. So, for example, we have Uber that started to be like a taxi company. I will call it this way, of course. But now they are trying to offer, like, for example, not the airplanes, but helicopters service. What they are doing, it's basically a new product. We're entering a new market that we have never seen before. So this is a related diversification because it's still related with their main core business. But then we also have the non-related diversification. We have, for example, I don't know, leather companies that started by making shoes and now maybe they are doing masks for the coronavirus. This is a non-related diversification because they used to have a business, but now they are operating in a different product in a new market. So this is an example of diversification that is non-related. I think I have here a question. Yes, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on YouTube after it happens. So this video will appear after, and you can consult it at any time. Then we have another question, which is, okay, Atham was just trying to help me on answering the question from Vision and Mission. Thank you, Atham. Good. Now I have explained you the answer of metrics. And as I told you, this helps us understand our commercial orientation, as if we are entering a new market with a new product, or if we are doing a new product to an existing market. So again, trying to put our mindset into a specific mindset so we understand what we are doing as a business. Then, bringing back again Michael Porter. Michael Porter, in his studies and in his specific studies, he said that there are 3 strategic models. Okay, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, and I think we will discuss it a little bit. But on his perception, we have 3 specific strategic models. We have the cost leadership. So basically, we are focusing on offering a competitive price for a quality product or service compared to the other products. So we are fighting for price, generally speaking. Then we have differentiation. So we are offering a product or service that is completely different from the others, of course, from the other competitors, that the customers value when choosing it. Otherwise, we are not being different. We are just being, idiots. So we are doing something that is different, and we are differentiating ourselves by something that is different in our specific product or service. Then we also have the focus, and here it's basically the strategy of focusing on a specific and limited range of clients, so satisfying their specific needs. Here we might have, again, this also divides in 2, so we can have a focus on cost or a focus on differentiation, okay? These are the 3 general strategic models that Porter says that we have, generally speaking, when we have a company. Here I want to go back to the value chain, because If you decide that you want to have a specific strategic model and to implement one of these, all of the activities from the value chain of Porter need to be oriented to this specific model. For example, let's say that I want to have a company that will basically work on cost leadership. I want to focus on costs. I want to focus on having the best price for my clients. In this case, all of our activities inside our value chain need to be oriented to this part. Not only, for example, our inbound logistics need to be very effective so we can save a lot on these costs, but also marketing and sales need to be very efficient in terms of the return that we have from our campaigns. Or on the other side, we might have outbound logistics, and we try to make them as much cost saving as possible, so that we can offer these prices to our customers. So all of our activities need to be specified and specifically oriented to deliver this specific low cost, so that we can actually have a best price for our clients. On the other side, if we choose for the differentiation part, then of course our structure needs to be different. Maybe we are not so focused on the costs that we are having and in the prices that we are making in the market, but instead we are focusing on being different from the other companies, and we try to also adapt our structure in order to deliver this different aspect to the clients and customers. I'm just checking if this is not... Okay, Julius actually gave a very good example of a vision. He's still in the discussion of the vision, mission, and values. As I was saying, the value chain should be oriented to this specific strategic model that you will choose. Now, trying to understand a little bit, if our competitive... Remember when we talked about the competitive advantage, and we were talking about something that should makes us the best and should makes us different from our competitors. If our competitive advantage is on low cost, like I have very efficient processes that deliver me a final product that has a very low cost, and this way I can offer a lower price to my clients. And in this case, we have a wide target, so we have a general segment that we are offering this product. Then in this way, of course, we should choose the cost leadership strategy model. On the other hand, if our competitive advantage it's on differentiation, so we are different and we have something that really makes us different from our competitors in terms of the final product or services, then we are working with a differentiation leadership. So we are putting a lot of efforts on this specific part. When we go for the limited target, so as I was saying, like you have the strategic model, which is focused, and here it divides into, if the competitive advantage it's on low cost and you have a limited target, then we are talking about cost focused. If we have a competitive advantage on differentiation for a limited target of people, then we are working on differentiation focus. What we have seen, and this is one of the main critics to Porter, is that nowadays we don't see a specific product that sometimes it's very limited in terms of target, because he never defined what is a limited target or what is a wide target. What I think is important for you to understand is that we need to orientate our business and our value chain to a specific thing. Either it is about the low cost and low prices that we offer, either it is about the differentiation that we are providing to the market. Now wait a second, and let's take a moment to breathe and to drink some water, okay? Right now, I mean, I know this is a lot of information, and probably you're just like hating me for giving you such a long monologue. But still, I think it's very important for you to understand all of these models, for you to also try to shape your mindset to this specific part of defining a strategic plan. Probably after I told you about these strategic models, maybe now you are telling me like, okay, David, wait a second. If we talk about IKEA and bringing back IKEA again, we see that they have a business model that is focused on cost. Well, yes, because they focus a lot on having a low price product for everyone, because as I told you in the mission, like they want to deliver low price furniture for everyone. But on the other hand, they also have a very different product from the other companies that work on the furniture part, because not only their logistics is very different, not only they offer a very different product in terms of the after service, they have a very different aspect, a lot of aspects that give them a lot of differentiation as a business. And I will tell you, yes, what we have seen is that after Michael Porter published this strategic the three strategic models, we have seen some businesses, and especially nowadays, that combine these strategies. And what we have seen is that another author from some strategy articles says that we have also the fourth possibility, which is the combination of strategies. This is something very dangerous to do in a business because, as I told you, and going back to the value chain, it's very hard for you to actually define what is the line between the cost leadership and the differentiation. And of course, IKEA does it very well, but let's not forget that IKEA also has many years of knowledge, many years of working in this business. So it was very hard for them to reach this level where they are offering the best product at the best price and still having a very different product from the others. So this is something very hard to achieve for companies to actually be able to do this inside a specific market. If it's correct or not, it's up to the top leadership of IKEA to understand. On our side, this is just useful to understand what is their actually strategy. We cannot say they are working on cost leadership, but we can also not say that they are working on differentiation, because they are combining these two things in their specific business. Now, we have defined everything. As I told you, these models are not enough for you to define the strategy, because as I told you, you need to go for each specific part of your business and try to understand if you should change something in your organization. For example, if I have a transportation company, I need to define, like, if I need new cars, if I need to have a bigger capacity of delivering services to the client. So still in the part of the planning and strategic, the formulation, you have other steps that then it's up to you to understand how you will define these objectives. And this joins with the implementation part that we will talk about now, which is trying to define these objectives to the organization. Let me just check if I have questions. New target is what we call... Okay, just people discussing, sorry, I just sometimes need to check if there are questions. As I told you, in the formulation and planning part, you have other steps that don't have frameworks, but instead come from your perception of the business and from the organization that you are building or working on, okay? Now we go for the implementation part and control. So basically now we are going from the theory, so from all the design part and from all of the structuring part, to the practical part, so where we start implementing the stuff. First things first, what I want to tell you is that internal culture is very important on this part, because let's imagine we are on the top management of a specific company, and of course we are defining the strategy, but once we define the strategy, it's not only up to us to implement the actual strategic plan. It's very important for you to not only make sure that people understand the importance of the strategic plan and the importance of this, all of the objectives that you have defined, but it's also important for them to work and to shape their daily activities towards this specific strategic plan. Because, for example, if we are working in a factory, I'm not specifying the business, if you don't, let's say that in this specific factory, you are now going for a model of cost leadership. So it's very important for you to have a lot of focus on the cost saving and etc. Of course, if your employees are not worried about the cost that you are having when producing something, then something will fail. Like you will not reach what we call the best level of efficiency that we should have inside the business. Because if it's only the top management worried about the strategic plan, then our employees and all of our staff, that it's actually the people that put their hands into practice, they will not work towards this goal. And this is also very important to make sure that then we can reach our main goal, which is the vision that we have established. And then we have the objectives. So of course, as I was saying, you need to define the objectives. I think all of you know what are SMART objectives. I mean, the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So all of these objectives need to have this specific, let's call it requisites. all of the objectives should be like this. They should be time bound, they should be attainable, they should be clearly defined, so that we have everyone working towards these objectives. Because after you have defined the main goal, you start to go down on the specific objectives, like defining them per each part of the activity of your business, and etc. And then you start defining them in time frames. So for example, if in the first year I want to produce 1,000 1,000 cars for a specific year, then we need to define, for example, objectives for each month and maybe for each week. So this is something that you should do, and it's a very complex work when doing a strategic planning. It's also very important because if you don't have specific objectives for everyone and for a specific time frame, then maybe you will not reach the main goal. And of course, the objectives should not be time bound, but as I said, they should be they should have an owner. So someone should be responsible to achieve these objectives or to lead the achievement of these objectives. And of course, it's not only up to the CEO, because if the CEO is worried about all the 1,000 or 2,000 objectives, then it's very hard to control everything. Then the last thing is that it's not because you have a small organization that you need to have like 2,000 objectives, okay? And I think this is also very important to mention. The strategy should be adapted to the size of your business, and it's completely fair, because sometimes maybe you don't need to use all of that models that we just talked about, and you don't need to establish 2,000 objectives. You should define the objectives that make sense to you, and this is about sense, this is not about learning, that makes sense to you, and that you think that by reaching them, you are taking your company from today to the vision that you have for 3, 5, 10 years, okay? This is the importance of the objectives and how you should have this sense of the business to understand where to take your organization. Then, after the implementation part and etc., we have the control part. And the control part is basically it continues until the end of the strategic plan. It's something that it's always happening. And of course, the control structure should be defined in order to make sure that everyone is going according to the plan. Because if you don't have a control structure, like people that are responsible for controlling the strategy, for controlling the objectives and etc., KPIs, etc., you are not actually controlling the strategy, and you don't know if you are taking the company in the right direction. And this brings me to the next part, which is the review. You should never be afraid to review, rewrite, or even decide again on the strategic plan, because that's completely normal. I don't think we have a company that defined a strategic plan for example, 3 years, and they didn't change anything. I mean, things can change from one day to another, and I think with this coronavirus really teaches us that from one day to another we can change a lot our daily routines. So it's completely normal that sometimes you need to go back to the strategic plan and define new objectives. Because, for example, sometimes you think that, okay, these 10 objectives should be fine, should be okay for me to actually reach my vision. But then while you are developing your main activity in your business, you understand that it's not enough to actually reach that specific vision. And maybe you need to define new ways to reach the main goal that you have as an organization. And it's completely fair. And it's something that happens a lot in strategic plan, and you should be ready for it. Okay, good. Then some final thoughts and remarks that I wanted to give you and to transmit to you. Breathing a little bit, drinking a little bit of water. I know this was a little bit intense in terms of amount of knowledge that I passed, but I prefer to pass you all of the knowledge that I can, so that now you have the tools to actually develop now what you want to develop and to, promote the interest in the specific topic. As you have seen, and this is common by everyone that works in strategy is very broad, okay? Strategy is much more about the sense that you have of a specific business or rather than all of the models that you use. I'm not saying that you should use all of these specific models or all of these steps when you are defining a strategic plan. What I'm saying is that you should have the specific mindset and you should train your strategic thinking skill so that you are able to understand where do you want to take your business and how you will take it. And this takes a lot of time and takes a lot of sense for you to understand. And again, that is why it's very important, the analysis part. So where you are collecting all of the data from the sector, all of the data from the from the environment, because what we see is that, for example, people that work in a specific sector for many years, they develop a very nice, let's say, a very deep understanding of a specific sector. And this gives them the possibility to actually understand where they want to take their business to and how they will do it. And for example, if we as young people, like entrepreneurs that want to create their own business, and happens a lot, if we are going into a new market, it's very important that we can take all of the data that we can in order to make sure that we can understand enough from the environment so that we have this perception on how to develop the business. As I said, there is no good, there is though better strategic planning, because of course, if you don't plan very well and if you don't plan a very good control structure, then of course your strategic plan will not work as you would like it to. Then, as for the last part, I really hope this was hopeful for you. Helpful. Sorry. I really hope this was helpful for you guys, and I hope I transmitted not only some of my knowledge on the specific topic and all of the. So I tried to give you some, like, try to push for your interest in the specific topic and to push for you to search more about this specific area, the strategy, because as I said, it's very broad and it's very there are a lot of different studies that and how strategy impacts businesses. What I want to give you as a challenge, and remember that I wanted to give you a challenge if you have seen in the index, unfortunately I could not find a practical exercise for you to give you a strategic example for you to develop or anything. What I try to challenge you to do, it's two things. First of all, and I mentioned it sometimes throughout the training, try to search more about the specific models that I told you, like the 5 forces of Porter, the pestle, etc., and try to find the critics about it. There are a lot of articles that criticize the specific models, and sometimes they give new examples of new models that you can use for the specific analysis. So the first thing that I want to recommend you is to find the models on the internet or in literature and try to find the main critics to these models, because once you also understand the critics to these models, you can also try to shape it into what you want to do with them in your own strategic plan. Then the second thing, and was actually related with the question that it says, can you recommend some literature for beginners? Yes, I have a main recommendation for you, which is if you search for the HBR strategy articles, I don't know if it's called this way, but basically Harvard Business Review has a book that has the main articles written about strategy and business strategy, basically from many different authors and from many different parts of the business strategy and many different topics. I really recommend this book because it mentions a lot of different things from strategy, not only these parts of the importance of the analysis and etc., but also the implementation part and control, that is also very important. So try to search for the book, try to go for it and try to read it, because at least for me, it was very helpful and really increased my interest in the specific topic. I was lucky because the JEE house has the book, so I managed to read it while in my specific term. But still, I recommend you to read this book. That is very, very nice. And I think we finished. Guys, these are my contacts in case you want to reach me for anything. I mean, I'm just another Journey Entrepreneur alumni, so in case you want to discuss anything else, or you would like to know more about strategy, or if you want to, discuss anything that we have talked today, please feel free to reach me, and I'm more than happy to connect with all of you. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and hope you also answer to the feedback link that Sara is sharing with everyone. So thank you so much. Now calling Sara again to the call. I don't know if she wants to say any last words.
And again, thank you, David, for accepting this challenge with us. And thank you for all of you to watch this amazing training. In the end, we will send you all the materials and also this link. And see you in the next training. See you all in the next training, and thank you so much, everyone.